anti-social network.
Yeah. Mask up, stay 6 feet apart.
Yeah, right.
Is that me saying antisocial network?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I didn't know I did that.
You did that.
Hello, listeners, and welcome once again to YUH with Lisa, Phil, and Aaron, who will be here soon. He's flying in from California, and he may have developed, oh, there he is. We're thinking he had some turbulence.
He just hit the tarmac.
Okay. Yeah.
There he is with his knapsack and his
Okay.
army jacket. Misfit.
Yeah, this week we're talking to Karen Dustman. She's a former lawyer and prosecutor. She's also a journalist.
Right. Well, and the name of her book is Miami's Great Hurricane. It's about the September 18, 1926 Miami Beach hurricane, which was one of the 12th worst natural or storms of the 20th century, right?
That's right.
That's right. So welcome, Karen.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
If you want to give us a little background, how you decided to do this particular subject for this podcast.
So I've done a whole bunch of books. This is one that's been on the back burner for me for a long time. My dad actually lived through this 1926 hurricane when he was 10 years old. So he was a survivor. And I grew up hearing stories about this, which they always call just the Great Hurricane in Miami. It was Miami as well as Miami Beach, of course. So I heard stories
Before
from
they named hurricanes, right?
It was before they named the hurricanes. That's right. This was just the great one. It was the one they always talked about. So I heard him tell stories about surviving that hurricane and about how the water came up over the keyboard of his piano and things like that. And I heard from his older sister what she went through as well. She was out at Miami Beach when it came through. So it's been something I've been thinking about for a long time. And I actually collected a lot of pictures of the hurricane. It was a time when photography was sort of fairly new, but everybody had a camera. So people came outside after the hurricane came through and took pictures. And there's lots of pictures still around of this hurricane. So I collected a bunch of pictures and I thought eventually I'm going to do a book. And then last year about this time, I decided it's time. I'm going to write this book. I'm going to put it out there. So it came out about April, I think it was, of 2025, right?
Well, that's awesome. You mentioned the pictures, and I got your permission. I prepared a little video. It's only about a minute, but it shows a few of these pictures. I think
good.
Be a good,
good slot.
Yeah, mood setter for the podcast.
Right. Pictures are like 1,000 words.
With more than 2,000 buildings damaged or destroyed. Every boat in the harbor was sunk or driven on shore. The city docks gone in the face of furious winds. In all, a 60-mile stretch of Florida's east coast from Miami to Palm Beach devastated to the tune of $100 million. Water, food, medicine, clothing, and shelter had to be provided for more than 35,000 people left homeless. In addition to supplies, trains brought in troops to halt the vandalism and looting that broke out. The hurricane of 1926 swept all the way across the lower east coast, through the Everglades to the Gulf of Mexico. It's still known as the worst.
That was great.
All right. Yeah. Great.
Yeah, he
pictures,
does
actually.
a good job.
Yeah. And the music was perfect.
Thank you. Yeah, I put a little showbiz into it, or I tried to, but
That was wonderful.
Man, the car blown against the wall is pretty wild.
Isn't that amazing? It gives you a sense, because you know how heavy those old cars had to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They were all metal. There were no plastic parts on the thing. They were a huge chunk of metal.
Big old steel, Yeah.
But a lot of
I
it
was
was
wondering that as I was reading what like a old Model A or Model T would weigh. Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot. Yeah.
One of the
She
pictures that
probably-
hit me the hardest was that guy sitting in his house, kind of looking pretty sad, and his house is all tipped sideways. And he's got off to the side in that picture, he's got furnishings that he was able to salvage. So you think about these people going through taking what they could to build their lives back. And one of the things I really wanted to do in that book was to say, okay, it was a horrible disaster. It was a terrible disaster, but there were really wonderful things about the way people came together to cope with it. So
Right.
people go on with their
Now,
lives.
was that a time when a lot of people had insurance for things like that?
They did have insurance, and actually that's a really good question. One of the things that was surprising to me was there was this flood of insurance adjusters that came to Miami right after the hurricane, and that's a good thing. Maybe people are going to get their claims adjusted really quickly. Everything's going to be great. But the newspapers were saying people were really unhappy with how that was turning out because the adjusters came, they paid them pennies on the dollar for what their losses were, but then they wanted to sell them new insurance premiums at 50% higher rates. And so they were really pushing the new insurance more than selling the claim.
Right.
Insurance.
People
Yeah.
capitalized on the situation. That's not unusual in this country, but
No.
but a lot of these
and
pictures.
it's why insurance adjusters have negative.
A bad
Yeah.
rap.
Right,
Sometimes.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are good ones out there, but
In my own family's case, one of the surprising things to me was the Red Cross came in and helped make repairs. So my family was pretty poor at the time. I guess you read the story in the book. My dad's father had abandoned the family of 6 children. So his mother was there with some children who had no dad in the house and nobody to actually do the repairs and no money to do them with. And the Red Cross came in and helped and made it habitable. They didn't do everything, but they made it so the family could move back in.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
So
The Red Cross. Yeah.
a lot of these pictures came from your own collection that are in the book, right?
Right.
So how did you go about? Did you go look at microfiche? Like stories from newspapers back in the day, or
I looked through old newspapers for sure. The History Miami Museum in Miami also has a wonderful collection of hurricane memorabilia and pictures. And of course, again, this was a time when a lot of amateur photographers were out there taking pictures. I got a lot of my pictures off of eBay, of all things. Some family albums that just showed up on eBay. But I also got pictures from History Miami, and they were willing to let me use them for a small fee. Yeah.
Look at me talking about microfiche. How old?
You live in Miami now?
No, I don't. I live in California, and actually, I used to live near you. Yeah.
She used to live near Pine Mountain Club.
I used to live in Fraser Park. Mm-hmm.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I'm just west of there and up.
Right.
I'm at 6,240 feet. My house.
Oh boy, where the bears are.
Where the bears are, for sure.
Where the bears
Walked right under my deck a few weeks ago.
Oh, that's a cute song for that.
We
So
live
now
right.
Aaron, he doesn't have to drive to hiking sites anymore. He just walks out the back door and just wanders off.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right up Mount Pinus.
Yeah.
My
He likes to take he gets his grand dog for the weekend and they'll just hike up the storm.
Oh, if he comes up here, it's for a week or 2.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah,
Cool.
It's a couple-hour drive.
We have bears where we are too now. We live right in the crook. If it's California's an arm, we're right in the crook of the arm, right near the Nevada border. So we're kind of a rural area, and we get bears here too.
The Sierras.
Right.
So that's sort of the eastern edge of California, I guess.
Yes, right on the edge. We're about 3
right
miles
on the border. It sounds like. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So what's your view like?
We have a really beautiful view. We're on the eastern slope of the Sierra, and we look out over the Carson Valley. So it's pretty. And we get snow-capped mountains most of the year.
Can you see any ocean at all, or?
Oh no, we're too far from the ocean, and I miss that. I miss.
She's inland for sure. I can't see ocean here either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember the first time we saw the ocean when we went to California is when we were driving down to the PCL or
PCH. Yeah, we went down Topanga Canyon and
just a blue haze. I looked up.
It wasn't. Was it Topanga or Canaan? I think we might have gone down Canaan.
Well, I peeked up from my large brim hat long enough to see the ocean, and I pulled it back down as we were careening around those sick, Right.
Aaron's used to those tracks, and he used to be a pizza delivery driver. So I had to sit in the front seat because Philip was having anxiety.
I shouldn't bring up what a wuss I was every time we talk about it, but it was
That's
beautiful.
okay,
It was
huh?
beautiful. It was like a blue haze.
You're not a wuss. You're just very, very
He has-
careful.
He has driving issues in the mountains.
I do
Yeah.
too. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. But so your father was about 10 years old when this happened, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And he said, I thought this was really right off the bat, this was one of the most engaging parts of the story. Was his quote that you put in the book was, "You didn't know it was coming till it started to blow," and that told me right there. There was no warning system. There weren't sirens blaring. There weren't meteorologists. I guess they wouldn't be on television or anything, of course, but there was nobody in the middle of town square crying about it or anything like that over a bullhorn. So it hit the majority of the people out of nowhere, right?
For a lot of the people in Miami, it came out of absolutely nowhere. They had no idea it was coming. It really blew up in the middle of the night. So a lot of people were sleeping, for one thing, but also you're right. They didn't have
It went like across Cuba and then back again, something like that.
It did kind of veer across Cuba. I think it did go a little bit and back again and then up. But they thought it was a tropical storm. They thought it was going to be just a tropical storm, and they had lots of tropical storms. And in fact, Miami had just had a supposed hurricane coming for them and a near miss with that just a few months earlier. So they were all going, no big deal. No big hurricane had hit them since I think it was 1910. And there were very few people in Miami in 1910, so they didn't remember it. And the meteorology of the time was kind of off the mark. They didn't think it was going to hit the way that it did.
Only 15, 16 years earlier, and nobody remembered it. That's crazy.
Yeah. Miami had really doubled or tripled in size. It was huge compared to what it had been. Right.
About 160,000 residents. Is that right?
Oh, I don't have a population right at my fingertips, but probably that's close.
There it is.
Yeah.
I think I took that from the book. I thought, man, I'm thinking Miami. Holy crap.
I know.
That had to be million.
And they were touting what rapid growth they'd had. That was just phenomenal for them. So
it was just starting to become an oasis, right? It was a vacation. It was already becoming a prime vacation spot.
Yeah, it was. To give you some idea, my dad lived in what's now North Miami. It was the town of Arch Creek at the time for a natural limestone arch. And it was, he remembered orange groves and tomato patches. His mom worked in a tomato packing shed. So if you can imagine North Miami having tomato fields, it's just amazing. And it was building up. I mean, they were starting to have big hotels and other things, especially at the beach, but hadn't really developed the way we think of Miami.
Okay, now I have a question. I don't know if you know this. This is the 12th deadliest storm of the 20th century. Let's say the last 5 years. How many of those storms in the last 5 years top the list?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, this was a Category 4 storm, and I think we probably had some Category 5s, right?
Several, yeah.
Yeah.
My sisters live in Fort Myers, and they had two about 3-4 weeks apart a year or two ago, I remember. And one of those was a 5.
Little tiny nudge in the direction of thinking about global warming.
Yeah.
So enough about that.
They're definitely more severe today than they were then.
Yeah.
The storms themselves were
they're
more
also
severe,
able to build better for withstanding it today than they were.
But I have to ask, where is it on the people dying scale as opposed to, because I feel like that's
the population was low, so
right.
You mean a percentage, a rate of people dying?
Died. How many people died in? I don't know. I think I'm not going to talk about. Yeah, well, Katrina's on the mind always because it got the most press. But I'm thinking of the one that starts with an L, the male name, like it was either Leonard or Lee or Luke.
Don't
I don't
remember
know.
one off the top of my
But
head.
that one was. What about Andrew? How many people died in Andrew? That's my question on that, because I mean, 12th deadliest storm of the 20th century. What is the full vector? As far as people dying.
And the Galveston 1900, is that 20th century or 19th century?
Yeah, I wonder whether they counted that one. That's right. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Yeah.
Yeah, because doesn't the next
that one's
century
allegedly
start on
the worst in U.S.
01?
history.
So one of the things that they definitely have done, and you sort of touch on that, is they've built back better. They built stronger every time. Every time there's a hurricane, the people who are involved with the building departments come up with new ideas for things that can be done better and building materials that are better. If you look at some of the pictures in my book, you see entire walls of buildings that were built of concrete block, but they didn't use a lot of reinforcing back then. And the whole side of the wall came down. That wouldn't happen today. And Miami has adopted some of the most stringent requirements, building requirements of the entire country. And so they go through, and I think it's every 20 years, 10 or 20 years, they have to retrofit certain buildings, or they inspect to see if they have to be retrofitted. So they make sure they go through and tighten up if it needs more, which is actually a problem. It causes, it's a great intention, but it has a problem in itself because costs go up and insurance costs go up, and some of them become cost prohibitive even for people who've lived there for a very long time. So, there's this weighing of.
There's a major cost to wanting to live on the beach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I bet this played into the.
And that explains the increasing cost of real estate.
Right. Which is pricing people out. Exactly. And that's hard too. So it's tough. We want a perfect world. Yeah.
Right. $1.8 billion in damages in today's money. Imagine that played a huge part in calculating the damage.
Yeah.
Even probably as much, the way that we think sociologically, we probably think as much of the amount of money that was lost as human carnage, unfortunately.
Right.
So factored into it quite a bit, that number, But people seem to have premonition, like your father said he had a premonition, sort of.
Yeah. Not exactly a premonition, but he said he could tell something was funny in the air. He could tell it felt funny. And I think the approach of the storm, there was actually a story in the newspaper that said that the Seminole Indians who lived there for generations had known a bad storm was coming, and for the past week had been seeking higher ground. And I thought that was fascinating. Somehow this indigenous knowledge that they were aware that something was coming. And so I think people did. My dad's comment wasn't the only one. There was also a newspaperman who talked about how he felt his skin felt clammy ahead of time. He just knew something was weird in the environment. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Joe Reed.
Yeah.
Who actually wrote another account of the storm, right? There was a major resource, I assume. But you hear about this type of stuff with animals and stuff too. Like they'll detect something is strange or something, just jaundiced about the color of the sky or something.
I know one of our cats, Nettle. Solomon's a lump, but Nettle will get a little antsy when there's on stormy days. Just a little,
the night before the Northridge earthquake, I could barely sleep. I was uncharacteristically restless. Yeah.
Oh, my husband.
And after the quake struck, I went right to sleep.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. My husband was a little kid. He used to tell his mom, "An earthquake's coming, Mom." And sure enough, within just a minute, it would strike.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long did it take before they started paying attention to him?
She used to say, "Stop it, stop it." Yeah. She figured out pretty quickly that he was right. And he doesn't do it as an adult. That's interesting. So he only did it as a kid. Yeah.
Right.
We're more open as children. I do believe that's true.
I believe that's true. I don't know. I think there's some interesting things out there. When we bought our property here, we had a dowser come out and douse for water because, of course, we had to drill our own well. And this 83-year-old guy named Percy Pimley came out with his willow stick, and he said, "Be careful, if you hold on to it, it will burn your hands." And he swore by, and we have some of the best water where we live. I mean, I don't know if it's really true or not. We figured for $80 or whatever you charge, it was worth it.
Well, it worked. You found water.
Yeah, and he found water, found really good water. So, yeah.
But I wonder if that's a gift, or if dowsing is something anybody could pick up. And I think it's probably a gift.
I think it's a gift too. And again, my husband, who's kind of got that little phase psychic thing going on, he can do it with welding rods, and he can find water lines in the street, and even plastic water lines. So it doesn't have to be metal. And I've tried it. It doesn't work for me at all. So I think you're right. I think it's a gift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Cool.
Well, so the storm, the damage from the storm was kind of enhanced by the fact that you had these wooden homes, or because of the boom, and trying to, build up the area quickly. The house, some of the shortcuts, I guess, made on some of the housing, or I don't know if shortcuts or not, but just they were made more economically, but not built to withstand that time. I mean, that's pretty short-sighted. You think about that gap of 15 years that Aaron alluded to. Doesn't seem like much to us, right?
Right.
But to them, that must have been. I mean,
it's a generation, man.
They lost. Yeah, but I think about 15 years. I started the job I'm currently on approximately 15 years ago.
The natives that lived there knew. They knew what was up. They went up and got high land.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true. But one city, Moorhaven, accounted for nearly half the casualties.
Right.
Likely because it was probably a new community. It was probably just growing, in this kind of quixotic way, and was not, and to borrow on a bad term maybe, but it was a perfect storm of circumstances. They got hit with the brunt of the storm, and that little city, it still exists, I assume, right? Moorhaven.
It does, and it's on the south end of Lake Okeechobee. So the other problem with their situation was that they had this gigantic big lake there, and it broke down the earthen wall, and flooded the housing that was there. So that was part of what killed so many people there.
Looks like the number 4 deadliest hurricane ever in the U.S. was Okeechobee in 1928. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you described that so let's wind it back to September 17, 1926, and you go to sleep. It hit around 3 a.m., right? And
the wind started building up right around midnight, and by 3 it was going pretty good, right?
Yeah. And so it lasted for around, I guess, 4 hours. And because there's still, there is no reporting, there's no sirens or anything going off, I guess. And people thought maybe at around 7 a.m., they thought, well, maybe it's past. Let's go out and assess the damage. Are we going to be able to stay here?
They weren't hip to the eye, most of them.
It was the eye of the hurricane, right?
Right. And I thought it was interesting. You never mentioned it was the eye. In the narrative, you never mentioned it was the eye, but I realized that's what it was.
Someone in the family realized that the winds were about to shift and it was going to come the other way, right?
Right, exactly. So,
and it probably had the most harmful impact.
That probably saved them
when it hit the other wall of the hurricane.
I think she said the back wall of that hurricane was the more serious,
violent.
It went to 3 in the afternoon or something.
It went on until 2 or 3 in the afternoon, right? But a lot of the people who died because they came outside. They didn't realize this was the eye of the hurricane. It was only a lull in the storm, and they went outside. Some of them even went to the beach, if you can imagine, to see kind of what the water.
Oh yeah,
I guess
I can imagine.
To assess the damage, to see if their businesses were still there, their homes, see how their neighbors were doing. So they came out and walked around, and then boom,
it was just halftime. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So one of the interesting things to me were the true stories of the people who actually went through it. So my dad's story, of course, but I included a couple of other true stories. Some that I found at the History of Miami Museum and in publications of various kinds. So to hear it in their own words, it's pretty amazing what they went through.
Yeah.
The fellow who was
One of them was especially tragic. It's like child after child dying.
Yeah.
Tied
Right.
to life. Yeah.
Yep.
And the mother was trying to carry the child with her, even knowing what had happened, and finally could not. That was really heart-wrenching. That account was.
That was really sad. I know. It was really sad. And the one with the guy standing on the table and the water's coming higher and higher and is up to like his nose.
Yeah.
That's sort of nightmare material too.
That's crazy.
I know.
So it's like a Batman episode.
Yep. And the sense of the wind and how strong the wind was. It was sending, pianos flying by the windows basically, or trees going by and hitting down forest elements, right?
Well, some of the pictures you have with the palm trees just almost sideways,
Amazing.
And water to the top of them.
Right.
Yeah, and here in Cincinnati, we live in kind of the near the top of Tornado Alley. We do get tornadoes fairly at least once a year. Some of them are pretty spectacular. But I know that they have discovered that within hurricanes, there are actually tornadoes. And according to storm chasers, and like, for instance, some of the most virulent and property damaging hurricanes actually involve a tornadic element.
Oh my goodness. So this is sort of cyclonic, the spinning.
Yeah, same motion.
Yeah. We watched the movie,
that documentary Twister.
Yeah, we watched Twister. Yeah,
documentary. I say in quotes.
No. We actually watched a documentary about that we watched the movie Twister, and then we watched the documentary.
Then you watch the real thing. Okay.
Right. And that's what we do with a lot of stuff. Like, what is it? If there's a biopic out there, we'll then watch a documentary about the band. Okay. So.
Well, another event that we experienced, it wasn't nearly on this scale, not that we experienced, but my father experienced, was the 1937 flood of the Ohio River. It didn't have near the impact that a hurricane would have, but it's legendary as far as a natural disaster. People being unprepared for the impact, and so I thought about that when I was reading this.
My
dad. Oh,
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, how old was your dad at the time? Those are experiences as a child, especially, that stick with you.
I think he was born in so like maybe 5.
Wow. And he still remembered it.
Yeah, he remembered it. He said he remembered, like, how you remember vague things from when you're a child. Like, I remember walking with my grandpa, who would be like 126 today. But I remember like holding his hand and walking around. You have these like hazy memories. My dad said he remembered going to going downtown and going across a bridge, and the water being just like 2 feet under the bridge. Just
wow.
Yeah.
So
now my dad lived through the same thing. He was born the same year as your dad, so he'd have been about 5. And what he experienced, and I don't know how much he remembered the actual flood, but what he knew was that their house is built in such a way that the living quarters were upstairs and things like the beds were downstairs. Because when they knew a hurricane or a flood was coming, when they knew there was going to be a lot of rain, they would move all the perishables upstairs. Okay. And this particular flood, I think he does remember this, or did remember this, because it actually reached part of upstairs. And this was the first time that had happened. And the town that he lived in, that flooding went, they still had that kind of flooding, nothing as bad as that. But to the point where when he was like 20 something, they would go bar hopping in boats. The bars had a second floor, and they would get in the boats and they would boat to the next bar.
So they just lived with it.
So the higher the flood got, they just go to the next higher bar.
They just lived with it and expected it. It sounds like
they just knew it was coming.
Well, they had their priorities in order.
Yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah.
But well, that reminds me though. So after the hurricane, people had to dig out from this, but their lives were devastated. Like they had jobs they could return to, but they were going to their jobs in swimsuits.
Well, I'm sure.
I love that detail. I love that.
Yeah.
I
mean, some of those jobs were probably affected. You know?
I'm sure.
I'm sure a lot of companies got destroyed, probably industrial, companies.
I'm sure there were some buildings that were completely gone. Exactly.
Right.
Go ahead.
And it's surprising to me how quickly they did rebuild. Within just a month or so, so much of Miami was back to the way it had been, or at least life was more or less returned to normal. Not that it
now, do you know if at that time there were hurricane improvements made in that month? Because that doesn't seem like a lot of time to put in some.
I don't think they made improvements, and there were certainly buildings that were gone and were knocked down. But in terms of cleaning the streets and getting the lighting back up and the telegraph lines were back up, business kind of went more or less back to normal. They had huge piles of sand, like 3 and 5 feet piles of sand in Miami Beach. They had to clear away, so they had bulldozers and things like that going. But just the cleanup was done, and people were resurrecting their lives at that point.
Yeah.
And I think you said about 75% of the hotels were still able to.
Isn't that amazing? And they welcomed visitors.
Now, did they house some of the homeless, or?
They did. The hotels were wonderful. They opened their doors to not only the homeless and gave them shelter, but they also served as distribution spots for the Red Cross for supplies and also for medical aid. They had doctors. They turned them into basically hospitals.
Right.
Okay.
So that's literally, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. It seems like the city really kind of came together. But it was a little bit of a false sense of security. They were buoyed by this idea that the hotels were still there, and the tourism. They started to even see some tourism come back, which was the main industry of the city. Right. But then what came along in around 1929?
That's right. And of course, the Seth Bramson, I was lucky to be in touch with him. He's sort of the historian for Miami. And as he put it, the hurricane really was a tipping point. It sort of tipped the city of Miami into the Great Depression 3 years ahead of the rest of the country, because it just it walloped the tourism industry and the building industry. People had been building and selling, and property was very hot at the time, certainly in the early 20s. And it started to kind of crest, and it was clear that it was becoming a bit of a boondoggle by the time that 25, 26 came along. There was a little bit of resistance, but it was still going pretty strong until the big hurricane hit. So it really decimated the local economy. And surprisingly to me, what really brought Miami out of it was the Second World War, another tragedy. But that was an economic boom for the area, and servicemen came to town and loved the weather and loved Miami, and they would either come back on vacation after the war was over, or they would come back to live. So that was a big boost to put it back on its feet. Mm-hmm.
Well, I told you about a TV show, and I don't know, maybe you don't watch a lot of television or anything, but if you ever do get a chance to sit down and watch television or a streaming series that's no longer being produced. It's called Magic City, and it's kind of about this period you're talking about after the Depression.
Right.
And the city was in World War II, like you said. And it's a gangster show, so it's
sort of
And to be honest, the acting in it is kind of, but I think it does a great job.
A little bit telenovela.
It makes like a really like a dreamscape of what it may have been like when Miami came out of the darkness and it was really booming at the time. So here's the trailer for the show. I'm gonna play it. It's just a minute here.
He just loves that show and he wants it back.
6 years ago, this was all just sand and mosquitoes. Now it's the Miramar Playa.
You built a palace. It's time to be king.
I'm the Evans. I'm the queen. 2 nightclubs, movie theaters, built a city.
I'm back 2 days, and already I hear you've got union problems. What do you want? I got half. I want the rest. No, the Miramar is mine. This will get ugly.
All right. They don't usually ding me for.
I'd never
heard of it. Yeah. They don't usually ding me for copyright infringement or anything when I play those, but we'll let it fly. But I just, I love movies about Florida, Miami, things that take place in like
Dexter.
Dexter.
We're big fans of Dexter. Of course, he's in New York now, but still.
We've been to Florida a couple times, and we really liked it. We really enjoyed it. We never got down to Miami. But we did go to Fort Lauderdale and Orlando.
The Gulf side. What's it called?
St. Pete?
Port St. Lucie.
Yeah, Port St. Well, no, Port St. Lucie is not Gulf, hon, because that's where my brother lives. No, we're talking about Bradenton.
Bradenton.
Yeah, beautiful area. Beautiful, right? Yeah.
And what
Florida? What is it that captures your imagination? I mean, that clip was really interesting because it had the
weather, the beaches, the ocean. There's so much more ability to go in the ocean in Florida where it's warm instead of, the cooler oceans on the other coast.
I mean, we have lizards here every once in a while.
Yeah.
So we went to
somebody brought a couple of lizards and they've done well.
No, we walked around Jungle Gardens and there were lizards everywhere.
Yeah.
And the palm trees and I love the decor. I love the red the roofing, the red roofing,
the tile trees,
the tile,
the tile roofs. I want to do a tile roof if we replace our roof. By the way,
it's beautiful.
Yeah, I want to do that new metal tile. It looks like tile, but it's actually metal made to look like tile, and it is red.
Okay,
I think that would look really good on our house.
Well, there's another thing, that early bird special.
Sorry, squirrel.
That was fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, he liked that kind of thing because when we're in a foreign place, he doesn't like to be out after dark much. So we would have to stay within walking distance because he wouldn't want to drive in an unfamiliar place. And then, if we were going out after dark, we either had to take a taxi because this was the last time we were there. It was still taxis predominantly. Like Uber wasn't much of a thing. We don't travel a lot for reasons you might, understand there. And so, the last trip we did was to California, to Las Vegas in California, so we could hang with Aaron.
Aww,
and that's been a few years because, some of my medical stuff has reared its ugly head.
We're big baseball fans. We went to a spring training in Florida and loved all the baseball. We loved going to the one in Tampa, the historic ballpark in Tampa, Al Lang Field, I think it was.
Oh, go ahead.
Have you ever been to the botanical gardens? There's some wonderful botanical gardens in Florida too. Well,
we hit those at that time.
That was great.
Right. Well, I mean, we haven't been to the Miami area. And that'll be like maybe a future trip. I know that I want to go on a cruise sooner rather than late. That would be our next trip. So I don't know where we'd be going out of.
If we Lauderdale,
that's where we went from the last cruise that we did. And that was just an 8-hour cruise to Grand Bahama Island.
Well, what about you, Karen?
And we spent a few days there.
How long has it been since you lived in Florida?
I lived in Florida. I graduated from college in 1975, and I lived in St. Pete. I went to Ecker College on the Gulf Coast. I loved Florida. Actually, I grew up in New England. I grew up in Connecticut originally, and went to college in Florida. My dad was from Florida, so we would make trips down when I was a kid to visit relatives and things like that. But I really would love to live there again. It's one of my favorite places.
Now, what brought you to California?
A boyfriend at the time.
That's how Aaron got there.
Yeah.
Not a boy, but a girl.
He wanted to go to California, so we each got motorcycles. And I rode
a motorcycle. Wow, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Now that is cool.
That was cool. It was a fun trip.
Did you do Route 66?
I'm sorry?
Did you do Route 66 or the southern route?
We didn't do Route 66. We kind of came more the southern route, so we came through Texas.
Yeah.
That was
That's
fun.
cool.
That was fun.
Born to be wild.
Both of them are good. My thing is, if we were to do a trip like that, I would want to do like a sleeper van or an RV.
Yeah.
And I want to hit every kitschy spot. We love those little stupid museums. You know, the kitschy weird museums like the doll museum, or there was a car museum that we were driving up the road when we were in Florida, and there's a car museum.
I think that was Sarasota.
Oh, that was Sarasota. Well, yeah, I said Florida.
You like all that stuff in like,
huh?
You like the giant thermometer and the alien.
Yeah, we hit those on the way from Las Vegas.
Or Baker, California, the largest thermometer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Or
we love those little kitschy things. I want to see that damn ball of yarn. In person. You know?
Sounds
the
like a
Midwest thing. Yeah.
Well, we should add one more thing that attributed to this, after the sort of rebirth after the hurricane. There was an incident where there was a ship that sunk.
Okay. I'm going to need to step away for a moment.
Okay.
Excuse me. Okay.
Do you know what I'm speaking of, Karen?
The Prince Valdemar, yeah. And it was actually before the hurricane. It was the January before the hurricane.
Okay.
So that was another precipitating factor for the problems that Miami had. Mm-hmm.
Right. So it was suppressing travel and, tourism.
It was suppressing delivery of materials for building, among other things, because ships couldn't get in and out of the harbor, right?
Right. So, there was just a number of mitigating factors. The book is, I really enjoyed reading it. It was a quick read. I'm looking forward to some of your other, I'm a history buff.
Oh, good. I love hearing that.
Yeah. And I don't know if let me bring Aaron back. He dropped out for a second. I don't know if I'd call Aaron a history buff, but he's a voracious reader, including history and philosophy and fiction and science, everything.
I don't consider myself a history buff.
No. Yeah, I wouldn't categorize you in any way, really, but especially not that way. But I am. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to follow up with your other book, which is also about you've got many books apparently, but the one that's about the bad guys of Miami, or
right. Bad Boys Miami and a Few Bad Girls, it's called. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sounds like Bill's alley.
Yeah.
Gangster really Museum, that's what he loved in Vegas.
Oh, yeah. The Gangster Museum in Vegas, that was really cool. I enjoyed that. But, I think of Miami, I think of Hyman Roth and Meyer Lansky and Once Upon a Time in America. There's scenes in Miami and that. And you can almost smell like the atmosphere, the cigarette, the cigars and shit. It's like
think of what's his name, Jan Hammer, the guy in the Miami Vice theme. That's
not my niche. 80s Miami Vice. I did work with a guy who appeared on Miami Vice. You know how they had all the technology and stuff like that? It was all fake.
I didn't watch it really.
This guy's
they had like a theme song and then flip to something else.
Okay, well, they had a console on one episode that was really just a box with lights and crap on top of it. And this guy that I worked with sat inside the console and worked all the stuff.
Oh, that's wild.
Cameras.
Well, that's fake.
He was telling me about it. But yeah, I don't know. The Scarface era of Miami doesn't hold quite the mystique that like the 50s and 60s does.
Yeah.
Or Florida.
So one of the stories I told in the Bad Boys Miami book was about Fatty Walsh, this was the 20s, and he got killed in the Biltmore Hotel. The Biltmore Hotel had just opened. It actually got damaged in the 1926 hurricane, but not too terrible. They were able to open. So he got killed, and by the time the cops all rolled up with their Model T Fords or whatever they were, the entire 13th floor had been cleared out. There were no witnesses. Nobody knew anything about it. There were no more gambling devices. There were no gaming tables. They cleaned it all out, and nobody knew nothing about nothing. Great story.
Yeah. It's amazing how they can whitewash something when they need to, right?
Yeah.
Did Phil say that you wrote a book about Pine Mountain Club?
I wrote a book about, let's see, I wrote a book about the Ridge Route, the history of the Ridge Route. Yeah. And I wrote a series of stories about the Lebec Hotel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm interested in that kind of history, the local history. And of course, the Lebec Hotel, they had gangsters too. And the story was they'd had rigged roulette wheels. So if you stomp on the floor in the right spot, the ball will stop where you wanted it to stop. Yeah. That was great.
Wow.
Pine Mountain Club allegedly is, houses a lot of witness protection people.
Oh, okay.
So if you like go to Google and type witness protection Pine, it auto completes Mountain Club, California.
Goodness, I didn't know that.
But you don't find anything.
Oh.
Because I'm guessing they've removed it. But
I'm guessing. But
there
the
was a
search
realtor
still comes
telling
up.
me that there's like a lot of retired cops and FBI agents that have an extra room over their garage that they never rent out, kind of thing.
Oh my goodness! The writer in me says, "Oh, there's stories there.
There's stories here for sure.
Stories there."
I can imagine that's interesting, Aaron. Yeah.
Yeah.
They got to stash them somewhere. But it's so remote.
Yeah,
there's only one.
There's no mail delivery to the house. You have to go to
Right.
the post office down in town, and that falls right in with witness protection too.
Yeah.
No one knows where you are.
But
if you are, somebody just goes to your PO box and gets your mail for you.
All right.
How long of a trip is that for you, Aaron? It's only one road in and out, right?
Well, basically, yeah, the Mil Potrero Highway. It's 8 minutes. I go straight down the mountain, basically, make a left, and about 40-second drive to where I turn into the little shopping center where the post office is.
Okay.
So it's probably a half-hour ordeal going down, getting anything, and coming back up.
That's not too bad. Mm-hmm. Is that a daily trip?
Probably every 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I do it with the trash runs usually. We also don't get trash pickup.
Yeah.
But that's because of bears.
Yeah.
So Karen, only got a few minutes left here. So tell us. So you're a lawyer?
I'm a lawyer. I'm a retired lawyer.
Yeah.
I think it was a great career. I enjoyed lots of it, but none of that was as much fun as being a writer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a common theme. We had a writer on, Eric, the other day. He had been in advertising, and I don't know what compelled me, but I just told him, well, that sounds like the worst job I can ever imagine doing. And he just kind of laughed, but he also kind of agreed, because he says what he's doing now is so much more fulfilling,
Feeds your soul.
Writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you get to follow your passion, and if you see an interesting story, you can pursue it. So I have a little blog, a little history blog actually, and somebody told me a story about their grandparents and how they met, and it was basically a love story. And he followed her across an ocean for love, basically. And I get to put that story in my blog. It was the sweetest thing. Yeah. They ran across each other. He knew that she came to New York City, didn't know where she was, just came to follow her. And he found her in Central Park on a park bench. They were meant to be. Anyway, it gives me chills to think about that.
That's a great story.
I think we have a great love story.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you ever wanted to do a volume of, please.
So tell me your love story.
Okay. Well, okay. We met at work, and we talked for a couple months, about maybe 4 months. And we started working together on third shift. And at that point, I knew the first time I saw him, I went, and then I backed up and didn't talk to him for a month.
But you knew.
But I went into the back room, and I said to my coworker, I said, Dolores, who is that guy? And she said, what guy? And I said, the one I'm going to marry.
Oh.
Yeah. And so she introduced us. And of course, I didn't speak to him for a solid month. And then I trained him. And thankfully, when I trained him that day, I happened to wear a scoop neck blouse. or dress. I had on a scoop neck dress, knee-high socks, and like, granny boots. So he thought I was it was maybe like punk or something, and that was attractive to him. I'm really not that punk, but it worked out. We had our first date on December 8th. And
I'm stuck on granny boots, like from Beverly Hillbillies.
yeah, those. Well, I mean,
Okay.
the modern version. I liked them. They came up on the ankle. They
Do you do the granny
all the way
dance
up.
too?
She
Yes,
danced.
I can.
She could. I could tell you, man. She could dance back then. She would do She could cut a rug for sure.
Yeah, I can do some Irish dancing.
She'd
I can't do
sashay
it so
all
much
around there.
now, but yeah, when we met, I was 26. I turned 27 just before we started in October, before we started dating, and I could still do cartwheels. I would do cartwheels in the hallways at work just to kind of keep the energy going. And then another thing that I did was when I was filing, because the files went from like almost floor to like really tall, but really short. And the bottom too, it kind of hurt my back to bend over, over and over again. So what I would do is I would save the ones that were on the bottom in the bottom of the cart, and I would do the splits in the aisles, and I would just scoot down the aisle, and then I would turn around and scoot down the other aisle. And everybody was just like, I have coworkers who probably still have photos of me doing that.
It's like nobody else could do that job. It's like you were designed to do that job.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah.
But we had our first date on December 8th, and we got married on January 1st.
Oh, you guys knew it was meant to be.
Yeah. And 31 years later, he's still alive. So it was meant to be.
It worked out.
We're keeping each other alive here.
Yeah, I have no plans to, hold a pillow over his face until he stops struggling at this time.
I'm telling you, gotta quit saying that. People will,
If I do kill you, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm not dumb.
Yeah.
All right. Protection, right?
Right. I'll have to go to Pine Mountain Club.
Hang out. Hide out. Yeah.
Disappear.
That's right. We'll find a garage apartment for you somewhere.
Cool.
All right, Karen. I guess where can people find your work? Where can people pick up copies of the book?
I have the website I love the most is very hard to spell. It's claritage.com, www.claritage.com. Otherwise, it doesn't come up. But Claritage is hard to spell. If I had it to do over again, I would not use that as a website. But it's my mother's name, Claire, Clair, and ITAGE, like for heritage. So it's a combination of Claire and heritage. But if you can't remember that, there's KarenDustman.com, which is my writerly website. And I'm on Facebook as Karen Dustman author.
All right. Well, we really enjoyed your book and look forward to more.
Yeah.
Aaron, do you have anything you wanted to?
Oh, you need to tell him about the book that you wrote pertaining to the area.
You were gone.
But I will. I'll have to send you a Bad Boys book. I'll have to send you a chapter out of the Bad Boys book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would love that.
Oh, we're probably going to read that.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm sure he will.
All right, Karen, you have a great rest of your Sunday.
Thank you for having me on. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Aaron.
Yep, we enjoyed
Thanks, Aaron. Good to see you.
Love to have you back whenever.
Sounds good. All right. Take care. Bye.
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 Sorry about that. That new medication is not my best friend.